personnel, the personnel exception is very complex. The bottom line is you really only can meet in private to discuss specific personnel or to interview for the head of the agency. And let's go through that. I said discuss. I did not say to meet with that personnel. I meant to discuss amongst the board members those personnel. No receiving evidence, no voting in private, no scolding people in private, even though that might be good and it's certainly been embarrassing, and we're not seeking to embarrass anybody. The law calls for these to be in the open, except for discussions about it. And it has to be specific, not policy. And the new exception, if you're interviewing and it's the head of the agency, you can do it in private. Frankly, short of interviewing the head of the agency, I do not know why boards or commissions as a whole interview at all. That really isn't what they should be doing. They have people they employ to do that. The head of the agency, for instance. Okay, executive session, I've mentioned that before. The same thing applies. Sir, hold on, hold on a second.
If the council is interviewing applicants for a board, zoning board of appeals, planning and zoning board, are those held in executive session?
They should not be. Those aren't head of the agency type positions. And by the way, discussions about existence on the board or not itself, let me come back to this. Meetings by an agency to discuss taking action or filling a vacancy in the membership of the agency itself, always open. Always open. And certainly if you're talking about board of, if they have a meeting to do that, that meeting should be open. They don't have to have a meeting to do that, by the way. A lot of times those things are delegated. But if they are, it should be open. Okay, executive session requirements. Chair has an obligation to keep them on track in executive session. It's very easy to get off that. This is the closed meeting. You have an affidavit. After the meeting, it talks about, you check the box, but it says, this is why we met for one of these limited purposes I've just outlined for you. Okay, open records. Bottom line, always interpreted in favor of openness, not closed records. There's a question way in the back right over here.
When you discussed notice for a regular meeting, I was waiting for you to discuss notice for temporary committee. A committee that's assigned to conduct the business of an organization, and they're just temporarily going to be working. What are the parameters for notice for those types of things?
Okay, if you're talking about a committee that's been formally appointed, our office will not touch it if it's not a committee that's been formally appointed. Formally appointed committee has exactly the same requirements as the agency itself, meaning that that committee has to give sufficient notice, and that's going to be, usually it's going to have to be 48 hours if it's a special meeting, but a week plus if it's a regularly called meeting of that committee. Okay, they have to post it on their agenda, and they have to post the notice on their meeting site, and they're going to have to keep minutes, as I mentioned. Exactly the same requirements if it's a formally appointed committee. Okay. Documents. What is a document? It's not as hard as it looks. By the way, the old definition of document was unbelievably confusing. So here's the deal. Everything of every kind that is a recording is a document, period. Typed up stuff, printed up stuff, drafts of that stuff, stuff with interlineations or notes on the side, that's another document. Post-it notes that are stuck on that, post-it notes that are by themselves, calendars, notes on the napkin from the restaurant, text messages, email messages, data that is kept on a computer. All of that stuff is a document. Citizens are entitled to look at all of that, unless it falls within a privilege exception, like social security numbers and so forth, which we'll talk about in a minute, citizens are entitled to see all of it. Let's go through what that means in some detail. Well, let me cover the request.
Quick question, Mike.
Yes?
Just in the definition of the document, what about video or audio recordings?
Absolutely. Video, audio, done by city. For instance, I mentioned the suit against the city for the recording. Not only did this woman take a video of the meeting, the city had its own video of the meeting. That's open. She got it. It's a proper document. Photographs that are taken, those are open. Now remember, as I said at the beginning, we're talking about documents that are in existence in the government employee's hands at the time the request is made. So, let's say they've got a draft, and they're going to go to a final, but they're not at the final yet, and you've asked for it, it's just a draft. If you want the draft, you're entitled to the draft. That's the document that exists at the time. It is not their right to say, I'm not going to give it to you because we're going to make it a final document. They can say, would you wait while I finalize it? And if you say no, then you're entitled to. They can say, can I mark a draft? And if you say yes, they can mark a draft. They certainly should put a note on it that says this is a draft. They shouldn't alter the document. All the documents that are in existence at the time the requests are made are the ones you're entitled to. You're not entitled to say, create a document for me. That's not in existence. Only the documents that are in existence are the ones you're entitled to. There's a question right here. And then you've got one in the back as well.
So what about the contents of the database?
We're going to get to that. Be patient. I'm going to cover that probably in not enough detail, but I will definitely cover database contents. Yes?
Yes, can someone simply just make an appointment to get a government entity to come in to inspect the documents and without being charged a fee just to inspect it?
We'll get to cost, but the answer is if they have to collect those documents for you, then you can be charged for the time to collect those documents. If they have to redact some information from those documents, for instance, let's say they have social security numbers on them, they're probably going to need to make a copy before you review them and mark up social security numbers. You can be charged for that. So if they're just documents that they keep in a drawer that don't have any confidentiality in there, and you say, I want to see that drawer right there, yeah, you're entitled to do that. And there will be no charge. We'll talk about costs in a minute. There's a question way in the back.